Well, hello everybody. I'm back here tonight with my good buddy Colin Gibbons, and we're going to explore some other esoteric tangents and very interesting, intense stuff. Tonight, I have a question for Colin. Colin, do egregores have limitations?
Very possibly not. I think the biggest limitation to an egregoric form or thought form on the sort of physical plane, 3D, if you like, that we inhabit, is the fact that we limit our own imaginations through an indoctrination that's placed onto us by governance, perhaps. I think that's the way I might like to put it forward. So yeah,
I was
take that one where you like.
thinking about that today, that there was a paranormal video I'd seen of was a little girl pointing to a closet, and she said she could see a little man inside the closet and it was frightening her. And her mother couldn't
Yes.
see it. And this child was very young and definitely wasn't coached or anything and was genuinely upset that there was a little man standing in the closet. Now, we all know the story that kids, and we see it in cats and dogs too, see things that we don't. Like kids will see fairies and stuff. That's been like well documented that parents will say,
Yeah.
the little kid will say, I see fairies in the garden, and the mother just thinks it's cute. But then then like they go to school and then it's all about attenuating this very wide focus that the child is born with into an extremely tight bandwidth in order to create this reality that they need to actually keep us in.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem. Um, I mean, I can't remember, but apparently my mother said I had an imaginary friend called Simon, and I used to talk to Simon. So whether Simon was actually there or not, I can't genuinely remember. But
Yeah.
it was basically when I first gained the power of speech, I used to talk to Simon, whoever Simon was. Well, I can't connect with whoever he is now, or whatever that entity may or may not have been. Um, Another story which I have witnessed, um, a friend of mine who lives in Lee near Wigan, she fosters two autistic lads. And when they were probably about 7 or 8, her niece brought a newborn baby to visit, and I happened to be there that day. And they were passing the hands like this over the baby's fontanelle, and they were quite literally tripping off it. Never seen the like. And that's
Wow.
that's no just because the baby's fontanelle was still soft. You could see it sort of flexing with the heartbeat of the baby, and they were sort of don't go near the fontanelle, mind the baby's head. And they were homing in on the baby, and they were putting its hands over the head like that, and then they would like they were in rapture. It was quite amazing to watch. You think, what the hell's going on there? And you just think, well, is this the download that you receive when you're born onto the earth from the greater mind that is the heavens? And that forms who you are. And then eventually your skull calcifies over, and then that sort of wavelength doesn't get into your brain, into your pineal gland, and then it sort of reduces your power as to who you are. I mean, there's always the insult, you're thick. Well, it's you've got a thick skull, as in nothing gets through.
Yeah.
And it's not that it doesn't come in through your ears and your eyes. It's not the sort of what you might call the brain waves, the informational ether, if you like, isn't passing through your skull because it's too thick. I mean, there's another thing. I mean, this is a difference between the sexes. Women are generally more empathetic than men, but then men have thicker skulls than women, just physiologically. So it's not that men or women are, cleverer or less clever or any more or less empathetic. But if you're a man and you've got a physically thicker skull than a woman, then you're not going to pick up on as much, which I think probably why men are more logical than women. So if you consider if that's a physical barrier to collecting the sort of greater information flow that's out there within the universe, then that's an impediment to people with sort of heavy bone structures, shall we say? I mean, you
You
can
know, you
joke
think
about
it's
it,
like when they
but
talk about he's a big lug, he's only good for, doing like,
yeah,
grunt work.
mm,
Yeah, there could be
yeah,
something true to that, like the big kind of lumbering oaf. that he's good for the manual,
Yeah,
which is that's the literal translation of the term golem means in Hebrew, just basically a grunt,
yeah,
a servant, a heavy lifter guy. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember being in school. My very first, the earliest memory I can think of in school was learning how to write. And we got these copybooks, and also on the blackboard it had like two red lines and two blue lines, and it was to teach you the difference between
yeah,
uppercase and lowercase letters. And like right there and then, they're like creating a bandwidth that you have to kind of stay within. Like the demarcation is all
yeah,
red there, you know. So you can see how
yeah.
they start.
I mean, that in a way can work two ways because if you want to converse by written communication, your writing has to be legible and everybody has to write as near to the same as reasonable. I mean, there's obviously difference in people's handwriting because if it's just if only you can read it, it's no bloody use to anybody else. You know, I'll write your notes so you don't forget, and then you look at it, and what the hell does that say?
But I
That
often
would be pointless. So
That's
there's
true, but I
this,
often wonder what it was like in times when people used things like cave art and rock art, and were more likely to use,
yeah.
less literal forms of communication. How
I was going
would
to
you love
say,
to go back and see how they communicated?
well, it's a bit like the old picture paints a thousand words, doesn't it?
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah,
you can draw a little sketch of something. I mean, you can get this in like newspaper cartoons. There's pictures of politicians. They don't actually look anything like the politician. It's a characterization of it, but you know who it is.
yeah.
It doesn't actually look like them.
I've always done.
So again, the picture paints a thousand words. They accentuate the features that you recognize. And obviously, these cartoonists are good because they can sketch somebody in a grotesque form, and we all know who it is. You don't
I
even have to look at the speech bubble.
I find it amazing how they do that and can actually convey their personality with these cartoons as well. It really is a very kind of powerful thing.
Well, I remember Spitting Image in the 1980s. They were absolutely horrendous. Kenneth Baker was like a little slug or something, wasn't he? And it's just,
I remember there was that the guy who created that show said that if you met a politician in the street and the politician wanted to like shout at him, it was never over that they had a sketch saying he's corrupt or anything like that. It was like it made my
yeah.
nose too big.
Oh, God. But again, you're dealing with the imagination of the artist that created the puppet of the politician who they're wanting to lampoon through a satirical thing. So the whole process is imagination.
Yeah,
So they've tapped into a vein of imagination which is probably more powerful than I've got in that particular direction, that vector. And they've used comedy talent and voices and visuals, and they've created absolute lunacy on the television screen, making absolute fools of these people who may or may not be fools in certain circumstances. But it's all very funny. So again, the sort of if you're looking at how can you put it, none of this is coming from the earth, other than what you've witnessed on the earth is then put up through your mind and projected into your greater mind, if you like. And then it can be all processed and then brought back in as an imaginative form. And then you can transpose things in space and time. Because if you think about your mind, it's always now and you can think forward and backwards in time. But actually, on Earth, here it is. It's, the 21st of October. It's 13 minutes past 8, and this is what we're doing. I can't escape that three-dimensional reality. But in my mind, I don't know, I could be skiing on Alpe d'Huez,
yeah,
anything you like, because
yeah.
I can put my memory back to having done that.
That's why I believe dreaming is actually like another reality that we're in. I don't actually believe it's hallucinations or games our mind is playing. I actually believe those dreams that they're going on somewhere else.
Yeah, it's strange that you don't always remember your dreams. Sometimes, especially at this time, I find I dream more at the equinox for some reason. In midsummer, not at all. midwinter, I don't remember them, although I do know that I dream. But the equinox, I mean, a few weeks ago, I was having hellish loads of dreams, and I was waking up remembering them pretty well.
Mm.
And yet, it all made sense. But then you sort of wake up in the morning, you think, well, you can't actually do that in this reality. So you're in a different level. So that how does that fit into um, what you truly are, and what is your true power? I mean, if you think about biblical scripture, does Moses go to the mountain or does the mountain go to Moses? So if you think your third dimensional body, like this flesh and blood meat suit here that's talking, this is made up of constitutional parts of the earth, and my mind controls it.
A long time
So
ago.
then you're back to the golem thing, aren't you? My mind controls
Yeah.
basically clay.
Yeah, you're the self-made golem. Absolutely.
Yes.
I think like that's
Yeah.
and the NPCs are the ones who haven't become self-aware that they're actually self-made golems yet. So they just follow along. About the dreaming, years ago I knew a witch, like a real one, a really good one, and she taught me a lot about the occult and magic and stuff like that. And she was, she could do invisibility, and she taught me how to do invisibility and things like that. But I was talking to her about dreams once, and she made a very good point. And she wasn't like an out there woo person. She was actually quite a stable person, and quite almost quite conservative in many ways. And she said to me that your mind has to screen wipe what you experienced in dreamland in the other reality in the morning. Otherwise, you will become schizophrenic. If you're not successfully, if you're not successfully doing a wipe in the morning, and sometimes
Yeah.
because of things like diet and things like that, it does affect our ability to do a proper wipe. Now that makes sense because like if you eat lots of cheese before you go to bed, you'll have like wild dreams, often nightmares, and that's
Yeah.
actually affecting the ability of the brain to neurology to wipe. So I thought that was a very, very good, theory behind that.
Then you see, if your human spirit has the power to collect atoms to create the 3D meat suit for your body, then if you didn't wipe your dreams and you continued that amount of power on the earth, what bloody hell would be going on Earth? I mean, it'd be lunacy. If you think you watch some of these science fiction films like Star Wars with Darth Vader flying around, he just sort of, and he sort of goes like that and makes rocks move. I mean, bloody hell, if we actually do have that power, but it's wiped from us because we have to forget who we really are when we
Yeah.
wake up in the morning in the 3D, it'd be chaos, wouldn't it? It's
Oh,
like, oh, I'm annoyed at my neighbour for building my fence, right? Well, blow his house up.
like that.
It's just,
Another one is that like thing of like you have to make sure that the version of you in the dream world and the version of you in this world must never meet. This is why you have the. Now, this happened to me once. Not, I didn't see myself. You know, when they say if you see yourself, you're doomed. Uh,
yeah,
I saw the doppelganger, or as they call it on the fetch, the doppelganger of a person I knew that lived in America, walking down the street in Dublin. And I know that they were in America at the time because I've been talking to them the night before. But their double
yeah.
they walked past me on the street. Now, I never told them, but it totally made me believe that it's very possible there could be doubles of us in altered realities, and every so often a certain glitch may throw them into this reality or something like that. But if you actually see yourself, it can be fatal, like a scrambling up a signal, two signals.
It's a bit like they're saying if you ever sort of dream you're flying and then you crash, and if you don't wake up before you crash, you'd actually pop your clogs because you died in your dream because you hit the ground or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know that much about the science of dreaming, but it sort of makes sense in a way that if you think you're dead, then you're dead.
It's
I mean,
very, it's
I
very.
think
Go on.
there's a lot to be said for you can think yourself healthy.
Or you can think yourself out of addictions. I've seen
So,
people who had very bad alcohol
yeah,
and drug problems actually do it just by saying, I'm no longer a junkie. It was the most
yeah,
remarkable
yeah.
thing. and it's and then they did it by just not doing their junky habits. Like
yeah,
the addictions are very much rooted inside kind of like their behavioral habits, things they do in the
yeah,
morning, little routines. And I saw a remarkable transformation from a guy who was a really bad heroin addict. And
yeah,
that's exactly what he did. He reimagined himself as
yeah,
not a junkie.
yeah, yeah. I think that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Again, that is a personalized egregoric thought form.
Mhm.
So I think we can be looking at it on different levels as well. So you can have a personal version of it, and then you can have the sort of society-wide one, community-wide one. If everybody in the country thinks that everything's going to go to shit, well, it all goes to shit.
Yeah, I'm always going on about people like that. Don't be buying into this doom stuff, not this doom porn.
Yeah, yeah,
You'll make it. It's like my mother used to say, don't cry bad luck, you'll make it happen. It's true. There's a lot
yeah,
of truth to that. Doesn't mean you go around going like I'm airy fairy and everything like that, but you don't go
mm,
because there's something about the doom cycle that's much more potent in terms. It's like black
yeah,
magic is more potent. It is a kind of a black
yeah,
magic, it's like a self-hex when we think about it.
yeah,
I'll give you an example of something that's going on at the moment like that. They're desperate to make people believe that comet I Atlas is an alien spaceship, and they have these. This is again a bit conspiratorial. Well, again, very conspiratorial here. They're getting your man Avi Loeb, who's a scientist who basically sees aliens everywhere and spaceships everywhere, and he's all over the media now. Having people all hyped up that this is an alien invasion and stuff like that, and they'll make it happen. They'll create the Egregore where it'll be strong enough for them to actually launch something like Project Bluebeam and make it happen, like it's a fake thing, or
yeah,
or
yeah,
even pull something true. I often wonder if your man Abbey Loeb constantly going, there's an alien spaceship coming, and getting all these people involved in it and getting them all like, oh, there's alien spaceship coming, that they could actually pull this thing through, bring it in. I don't know if you saw the movie The Color Out of Space, based on the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Color Out of Space. But they did a very clever twist that wasn't in the novel. It was set in the modern age, and the young girl who was living in the countryside on the farm, she was kind of bored, so she got into magic. She was doing like the Simon's Necronomicon,
yeah,
and she was standing on the edge of a lake that she didn't know there was an ancient stone circle below it, and she started doing invocations to the sky, and she actually brought
yeah.
through this thing that destroyed the whole family. So I'm very, you wonder even like with the power of mass media, are some things not true at all? Like we know the COVID wasn't, but like wars and stuff like that, that like the things never happened, that the wag the dog thing on a massive scale.
God knows, God knows. I mean, you sort of think because you never know what's going on in a war. Who's to say they don't get a squad of soldiers and then take them off somewhere and then never bring them back and then so they're all dead.
Yep.
They've actually gone somewhere else to do something else
Yeah.
because they're just taking the fit young men to go and build something somewhere else on a bit of land. You see, I mean, people say, well, I know what the world looks like. Well, how do you know? Well, because I've seen it on a map. Well, anybody can get a piece of paper and draw something. So there might be land that they haven't put on the map.
Oh, I believe that. I totally believe that. In
I mean,
fact, there's a
I mean,
there's a great story, and I've heard this from a few people. There was a great letter in 40 Times about 20 odd years ago where some guy was flying from Bristol to Belfast, and he flew over the Irish Sea and said he saw a country that's not on the map, a large island, and it wasn't the Isle of
yeah,
Man. It was more south. And he goes, he saw
yeah,
farms and fields, and then other people wrote in saying, I thought I was going nuts, but I saw that island as well. And it wasn't the Isle of Man, and it wasn't Anglesey. Now, when you think about that, like, okay, how could they really hide it? I mean, but the power of human, what's the word? Perception is so powerful. Like in Michael Talbot's book that he wrote about the quantum theory thing, he showed like that fellas who'd hypnotize someone and put their daughter in front of them and say, "Who's standing between me and your daughter?" And me and you, and they say nobody. And the daughter was
yeah,
standing there, and he was looking right through her. So,
yeah,
like, if you
yeah,
hypnotize people enough, they could probably. imagine or disimagine anything.
Well, then you see, you're going back to if we're powerful enough to sort of take elements of the earth and create a body and walk around the third dimension and experience it all as sort of the devil's playground, if you like. Well, who's to say that if you've got it in your head that there's another island somewhere in the South Pacific, and it's the size of continental Africa, well, perhaps it is there, perhaps it isn't there.
I've never
And
been.
then all you're going to get is people saying, yeah, but if you look on Google Maps,
Yeah.
and you're thinking, well, have you never used sort of like a bloody Coral Draw program or something? You can try anything you like. I remember at school, it was like you'd read sort of Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, and then the next blooming lesson, wow, we're doing art, so let's all draw a treasure island, and everybody would draw an island, and most of them would draw an island that looked like the one in the book.
It's funny that, yeah, they were programmed.
Yeah, because they've been programmed by reading the book.
Yeah, I
So
often
the
wondered
book
about.
says this, so this is what we're doing.
I often wondered
And
if
then,
parts of Antarctica with like temperate climate. Like it's not covered in ice. I often wonder about that. It's so big. Is it possible there could be parts of it that they told us the whole thing is covered in ice? But could there be? I often wonder if there's parts that aren't. Because they can show us any picture on Google Earth they want. They can make anything up they want.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I've had people saying, "Well, look at this, what I found on Google Earth." I said, "Well, yeah, it's a computer rendition of whatever you want it to be."
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, fair enough. I mean, I've been up the big high mountains in the Lake District, and you get a pair of binoculars out, and yeah, you can see all of Morecambe Bay and
Yeah.
Fylde Coast, Blackpool
Like
Tower,
smoke.
Liverpool Bay,
Yeah.
North Wales. On a good day, you can see Snowdon. On a
Yeah.
good day, you can see Northern Ireland and the Isle. Well, you certainly see the Isle of Man
Yeah.
and bits of Scotland, Criffel, all the rest of it. And you look at the map, and then you look at what you're looking at, and you can see that it's the same shape.
Yeah, I,
Well,
I first experienced that flying out of Shannon Airport to New York and looking down. There was the Aran Islands, just like the map, Galway Bay, clear.
yeah,
It's the mouth of the Shannon,
looks like it.
just like the map. It would almost frighten me
Yeah,
actually because it made me realize how high I was.
yeah, yeah. But you see, how do you fly to the United States via Iceland, basically? So they don't fly across the middle of the Atlantic. Is there a big island there that nobody knows about?
Mm. Yeah,
Because, you'd need a pretty big ship to get there, and you'd have to be pretty good at navigating. But then, what is the realm that we're in, and how does it work, and why does it work that way? Does it work that way because we're told that it works that way, or does it work that way because it does, and we experience it? I mean, which way is it going?
yeah,
Is does the land form up because we think it looks like that because we've seen it on a map, or is the land like that and we can map it because we've observed it? I mean, you're getting into subjective and objective realities, which is a bit sort of like Schopenhauer's work,
well,
world as will and representation.
John Dee was a cartographer. John
Oh,
Dee,
it wasn't John Dee.
he was amongst his many other things. He was a map maker. He created the British Empire.
Yeah.
And he was, like so. There's a long history of this smoke and mirrors with maps and things like that.
Well, pardon me. With regard John Dee, I mean, God knows what he dreamt up, and God knows what we're currently experiencing because of what he's done or did. Or you sort of think, well, because if there's one empire that's shaped the modern world, it's the British Empire from sort of Henry VIII onwards.
Yeah.
So John Dee followed on from Henry VIII, and that was all Tudor magic. But interestingly, if you think about it, we're all told that in the history books, and again, I can't prove it because I don't have the fourth dimensional capacity to go back in time, that the Romans chased the Druids to Anglesey.
Oh, they
And
did. They
Henry
did.
Tudor's, yeah, but Henry Tudor's
True.
family came from Anglesey.
Yeah.
So
In
is, is
AD,
Henry VIII, sorry, is Henry VIII a Roman who chased the Druids down and stole the knowledge, or is Henry VIII just a Druid pretending to be a Roman? Which way does that one run?
yeah, the AD 60 Suetonius Paulinus chased the last of the British Druids over to Anglia
Yeah,
across the Menin Straits. Now, they claimed they killed them all, but a lot of them probably would have escaped to Ireland and just waited there for a while until the Roman Empire collapsed, and
yeah,
then came back with the Irish that were raiding Wales and stuff like that. So that's very
yeah.
possible then. So that's how he could have survived that. But also, I mean, that's the so the Tudors. You look at her, the fairy queen, his daughter, right? So
Yeah.
you know that's a remarkable individual by any measure, and her association with John Dee, the fairy queen, and her mother was Anne Boleyn, who was well regarded as a witch when she lived
Very probably.
in the French court. In fact, that was one of the
Yeah.
it didn't that wasn't one of the charges against her, but it was one of the kind of like salacious rumors that were flying, and they cut the woman's head off, was that she was a French witch that had spellbound the king.
Well, again, what the hell is going on there?
Yeah.
Are there entities that have a greater power than we have to move about and create, or they haven't lost their abilities to create and they were being drawn out by some sort of druidic magic, or makes you wonder there. And then that's how they created the modern world that we live in, which is far more controlled and regulated. Perhaps we're regaining our power, which is why they're saying, oh, if anybody with their own ideas is a conspiracy nut job and a tinfoil hat wearer and all the rest of it, well, you can sort of see how they try to put people down with original ideas.
Oh, well,
Because
yeah.
again, the whole point of school is to mind rape children so that they just do as they're told and tick boxes. You know,
If you
people
look,
call themselves academics, and they're not really. They've
yeah,
just read the script and regurgitated it.
that's all they are. They're like, yeah, they're not great. If you look at people who've achieved exceptional things way beyond their station, say, I'll give you an example, Joan of Arc. This like
Yeah,
this peasant girl in France goes off, has tells that these voices, angels, fairies, there's lots of subconscious mind, say, right? And then the next thing she liberates France from the English. And
mm,
when the French army was on a state of collapse, a 16-year-old girl was leading the French army. And where did that come from? It's astonishing. It's like it came from some supernatural force behind there that that was her egregore, was to actually lead the French to the Battle of Orleans and stuff like that. That
yeah,
But you see so much of that. Like we talk about, like the Empire, right? Like when you said Henry Tudor, that's one thing. It really begins with John Dee and Edward Kelly,
it does. Yeah,
and
I
what
think
really.
he laid the foundation and they built off it,
Well,
and that's the way.
I think the software that they downloaded was Enochian magic. The Enochian script, I think, was the software that was actually a software system that gave them the edge to create the British Empire.
Yeah, very much so. Because if you think about it, you see, the Enochian language came from the Babylonian system, and Babylonian system is trade and business and commerce, which is the system that I would suggest is on the verge of failing at the moment.
Yeah.
So who knows? But then you see Henry VIII and Elizabeth, they had people writing different versions of the Bible, which was like the script for the priest class to control. So you're controlled by the priest class, the kings, the merchants, and then the rest of us are the peasants, supposedly at the bottom, when really they should be serving us. But they've sort of, like the lunatics are running the asylum on that basis. You know, if the
Well,
king's supposed your protection. The priests are supposed to minister to you, for your ethics and your morals, and the merchants sort of facilitate trade and keep stock and account for everything. Then why are they telling us what to do? Because they've reversed it all through the Enochian magic.
the
So how
the,
is because if
the
you think of COVID, who are these people to tell you to sit in your house? Who the hell are you? If I
yeah,
want to go out, I'll go out. And if I'm not interfering with somebody else, doesn't matter what I get up to.
yeah, none of their business. But then you see the thing with the Enochian magic was that it was almost like the Tudors used that as the software to create a certain reality. And if you look at their version of Christianity, it was still their Anglican version of it. of Catholicism, it was still a very mystical and magical religion. They hadn't really changed that element of it.
Yeah,
It wasn't until the Stuarts came along, which was,
yeah,
and they, James of Scotland and that shower, that they came with the King James Bible. It was almost like they were the ones who were trying to undo, and I'm not saying it was a good thing, it was probably a bad thing, but they were terrified of witches, they were terrified of magic, they were terrified of
yeah.
supernatural things. And it was almost like that they wanted to regain stewardship of this egregore created by the Tudors, particularly Elizabeth, and
Yes,
kind of like constitute it into kind of like something they could control better. I often, because
well,
it's so turbulent that century in English history is so unbelievably turbulent and had such an enormous egregoric impact on the rest of the world forever.
yeah. Well, it's interesting because this time last year I went on holiday to just near Stirling. And if you look at the ceiling in Stirling Castle, the Scottish kings trace their lineages all the way back to the Roman Caesars. So they're a Roman administrative system. So a Scottish king is a Roman Scottish administrative system, rather than there's no imagination in administration. It is follow the rules, tick boxes. So like you just said, they were after the witches, they're after the creatives. And it's not just female, there's men and women who are creative. But I think they particularly persecuted the women because they were perhaps the more creative. Because as I said earlier, the women have the thinner skulls and they're better at it, perhaps. Who knows? Who knows?
When you say empathy, you mean like in like intuition, like understanding.
Tuition and yeah, feeling for the
Yeah, yeah,
surrounding.
yeah.
It's
Gotcha.
like the sixth sense, you sort of when somebody's looking at you, you can sense somebody's inner pain even when they're putting an act on. I mean, if you know somebody well enough, you know when they're on a downer. But somebody you might not know so well, they would be able to work out whether or not you're in sort of any emotional pain. Because how many people do you see walking down the street? You don't know what the hell's going on inside them. They could be absolutely full of joy or full of pain, but you don't know because they've got a mask on.
Yeah,
Whereas if you're a true empath, you'd know.
yeah. The women are very good at reading the room. They're very good at reading the room, and so are
Yeah,
gay men.
yeah,
So are gay men. Gay men are very good at that as well. I, I don't know what
yeah.
that would be about, but it's almost like a superpower they've adopted from women.
Well, it's probably to do with sex magic and different energy forms.
Maybe.
Because I mean, masculine and feminine is just like saying negative and positive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Up or down, left or right. It's just you know, left is not better than right, and up's not better than down. It depends what you want to do with yourself. Male and female. Well, that's just the body you're born into. So that's obviously the energy you carry in the greater mind of your own God, if you like. So, you know, that's your speciality. It's almost like women are the creators, but men are the builders. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
That's a very good way of
Men do the heavy lifting, women do the sort of imagining in some respects.
it's almost like magic. It's like, the
Yeah,
women take it from the world of imagination and the men bring it. You often see that in even a couple. The woman will be saying,
yeah,
wouldn't it be nice if we had shelves here? Wouldn't it be nice if we built the kitchen extension here? It's usually the woman who comes up with that stuff, even on the macro level. And then the man has to actually
yeah.
employ men to do it.
Oh, yes.
When we first started doing these talks, you made, and I think you might have alluded to it again tonight, that you have this concept that is theory, whatever, that the Bible is actually like the roadmap of the dysfunctionality of this planet. Like it's almost like it's the machine, it's the schematic for the tulpa or the egregore that we
It
live in.
might be. I think it might be because if we're talking egregore and your body's a human machine and your mind is a human computer, then the Bible is the script because people talk about scripture. But who wrote the Bible? Because people say the Bible's the word of God, but then God didn't write the Bible, or did somebody acting as God write the Bible? And if so, who was that person? as we were discussing just a little while ago, we were talking about Henry VIII coming from Anglesey, the Romans, the Druids, and all the rest of it, and all the different forms of law. Is the Bible a sort of script to create the sort of chaos in which we bring in a new world order? And then if you think about, I mean, if you look at a dollar bill, it's got an Egyptian pyramid on it. So it's got an Egyptian pyramid on it with the detached capstone with the all-seeing eye. So who's the all-seeing eye? Is that the pineal gland? And then what is the pyramid? Is the pyramid the dragon? But the pyramid means fire within. Well, you've got fire within your body because your body's warm because it burns oxygen and carbon and all the rest of it. So is there all this? Is all this symbology and sort of different types of law and the amalgamation and the ordering of different sets of law, then the sort of the purpose of the Bible to sort of push people in? I mean, could it be that the Druids wrote the Bible to sort of steer a chaotic humanity into some form of order, but they'd sort of stepped back from it all? I mean, it's just an idea
Yeah, but you
because
know,
one of the things you say, sorry, one of the things you say is the old gods will return. Well, if your greater mind is your god, then the old gods would return if all the other types of law are set in order, which currently they're not because we have Roman law ordering us about. Well, I'm sorry, God's law orders me about, and I am my own god, and you're your own god, but we're all under the god of major creation, if that makes
yeah,
sense to you.
you've touched on so many things that I can comment on there. The last thing you spoke there about the old gods returning, well, they never went away, but I know what you mean about them being adopted in larger population. Like recently, I've been giving a lot of thought to producing a pagan book along the lines of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. It's almost like rules for returning pagans. It's sort of like a book that could actually get people away from the Abrahamic programming, and so you wouldn't have, you know, Slavic young men from Ukraine and Russia butchering each other over this like imaginary, this genuinely really evil egregore of Judeo-Christian society.
Yeah,
And I've been thinking
yeah.
a lot about that lately, like almost like, you know, a rule book for actually like subverting society towards paganism. That's how like strong I feel about it now. What you described at the beginning, what your theory is basically a very kind of a Gnostic idea of the prison planet and this trapped in this reality. Now, yeah, absolutely, this is some good stuff you pulled up now. Thomas Paine, who was the man who created the term the United States of America, a tremendous English American philosopher, one of the greatest minds
Yeah,
of all, wrote a book on Freemasonry.
Python, didn't he?
Yeah, wrote a book on Freemasonry. That's just everyone needs to get their hands on and read it. And he's claimed that the Freemasons of that came about were the direct descendants of the Druids from Ireland, Britain, and Italy. That's what he said. Now, this is
Yeah,
actually historically feasible because and we're back to, you know, this is amazing how this stuff all clicks together. We're back to Tudor times again. The old
I would say.
Laws in Ireland collapsed at the end of with the end of the Breton Code, the Breton laws, and the adoption of English common law in Ireland, which happened
Yeah.
after the Battle of Kinsale, where an Irish and Spanish army were miraculously defeated by the English. The English produced a stunning victory over a very powerful Irish and English and Spanish army. And then Ireland basically collapsed. You had a thing called the Flight of the Earls. Now, the Flight of the Earls, they left Ireland. These were like the old Irish Gaelic lords and kingdoms, like the old Irish kings. And they went to France, Spain, and Italy. And they brought with them a group called the File, which were the direct descendants of the Druids. And then they were Druids in every way except they had to be Christian. But in every other way, they were the Druids. They were descendants of the Druids.
Mm.
From the 1600 now, we're not talking about ancient history.
Mm.
Around that same time that they started they went down to France and Spain and Italy, the Freemasons magically appear all over the place.
Yeah.
And this was so Thomas Paine didn't say that in the book, but that we do have actual things that we can put a real bullet on to link it really does go back to the Druids that he wasn't
Like
bullshit.
like the underground society with the true knowledge.
Yeah, the secret
It's
colleges.
druidic. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And there's more to it as well. Like you said about the all-seeing eye and the pyramid, it's not the pineal gland. We didn't know about that back then. It, according to Payne in his book and other real Freemasonic books, it's the eye of providence, which means
Yeah.
the eye that sees absolutely clarity with no lie, no, absolute clarity. Now, this is why it's tied into the god Lucifer, which is the real god of the say the Freemasons is Lucifer, not the devil, but
Oh yeah.
this force, and that's why the man Thomas Usher, who was the Bishop of Armagh, who dated the earth to a specific day when it started 6,000 years ago, called it the Anni Lucius, the year of light, when you see, the people think, oh, did he say the earth was? Christians in America think, well, but Usher said the earth is 6,500 years old, so it must be. No, his Anno Lucius is when man became enlightened. The year
Yeah.
of the light, when man became stepped into consciousness and could then think for himself, which is a story of the fall and what you call it, Genesis and all that. So it's much
Mm.
deeper than people realize, and it's much more intense than people realize. But I absolutely do think you're on the money there with the Bible then was given to the profane, was given to the masses. Here's your Judeo-Christian bullshit. Go off. That's what you are. That's where you come from. But they worked to a different code in the Masons. They had their own Freemasonic Bibles and their own Freemasonic code. And they were continuing on the ancient tradition from like the Druids and from Anglesey and all that kind of thing. And
Mm.
they gave the King James Bible to the profane to say, here, that's go away, leave us alone. We've got a reality to build. I truly believe that.
What what reality were they building? Were they building the modern world we're living in now because people are so distracted with Judeo Christianity, which is possibly coming to an end on earth? Because you see, as last time we spoke, I talk about four classes of men being priests, kings, merchants, and peasants. So you've got priests is the religion and science, kings is the military, the police, and the civil authorities, which is Roman law, priests being Egyptian law, merchants being business and trade, which is Babylonian law, and then the peasants are just the ordinary folk, which is Dane law. So which order do you get these laws in? And then you see you've got that's the law of earth, the four classes of man on earth. Well, depending on what you're doing at any particular time, then you can be any one of those four. It doesn't matter, does it? You see, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Because we're just a pair of peasants talking shite at the moment, but we're actually going by the laws of heaven, which is philosophy, which is the Greek. If you're going to give it sort of empires of the earth, it's Greece, Egypt, Rome, Babylon, and the northern tribes, which is the Vikings, Danelaw, whatever you want to call it. So, and then if you translate that to the Bible, Egypt is John, Rome is Luke, Babylon is Mark, and Danelaw is Matthew, because it's your face of man is face of Matthew. So whoever wrote the Bible must have known that and integrated these systems and correlated them, but hidden them in such a way that nobody knows. But then you see, I would say there's Christianity on earth and Judaism on earth and Islam on earth are totally different from Christianity in heaven. So Christianity in heaven is like true Greek philosophy, whereas Christianity on earth manifests as Roman administrative law.
It's interesting.
But you see, that's coming full circle. So if the fall of man is you can philosophize and think and create, whereas if you go full circle to that, it's you follow the rules and tick boxes. So Roman Catholicism, Roman Catholic Christianity is shite on earth. the earthly religions have got to go, and we've got to go think upwards. So looking left and right, backwards and forwards, is a waste of time on Earth. You've got to look up to your own greater mind in the heavens and engage in philosophy. I mean, Monty Python do a cracking sketch, and it's Philosophy World Cup. And if you read the script of that, it's like the Greeks beat the Germans 1-0. Well, who's built the modern world? Germany. The British Empire is German under the merchant flag of the House of Hanover, which is a Babylonian system. They've set up the United States, and it's all through, we're told it's George Washington, King George, and Adam Weishaupt, which look very strangely similar. If you look at pictures of them, is it the same man? Who knows?
Yeah.
It could have been three of them. It could have been the same one in different places at different times.
This is
And then,
what you're saying. Then you said earlier on what was their plan. I can tell you what their plan was, and you nailed you inadvertently mentioned it there. It was to transfer the system from the world of kings to the world of commerce. And central to
yes,
this was the republican system of government. This is why
yes,
you had the French Republic and all the republics, even the Irish Republic, spawn out of the Grand Orient Lodge in Paris. This is why they all use tricolors: Ireland, Belgium, Italy.
yes,
Garibaldi was a Freemason. They're all Freemasons, all, Wolfe Tone in Ireland. They were all big time Freemasons. So it was a transformational system away from the world of kings and into the world of commerce. And I agree with you now that that's ending. The world of commerce. This is why we're in
yes,
a state of chaos. That world, that Freemasonic world of commerce. That's why we discovered so much about Freemasons in recent years, and
yeah,
so much information has come out the closet. It was almost like they wanted out there in the same way they wanted the sort of corrupt lives of kings found out on the cusp of this, the sort of Napoleonic age. I think we're heading into a a similar situation that we faced with revolutionary France, the rise of Napoleon, and then the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. I think we're heading into something very similar to bring in the new system. These systems do not get birthed, but they get birthed by pain and suffering, like a real baby is born.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, yeah,
those people who are going to come into a new age. You better be very careful, because if their usual plan works the way they want it, they have the order out of chaos. The chaos was the Napoleonic Wars that ravaged Europe for what, 18 or 19 years, and then you had like nearly a century of peace. They're going to do it again. I can tell. I can feel it. They're getting the chessboard pieces in place.
I think there's an element of that, but at the same time, we've been discussing about how the sort of the frequency is increasing. Last time I spoke, I was saying, well, in the 1970s, it'd take years to get nothing done, and now it's like blink and you miss it. So this last age that might be awful, it might come and go in a matter of months or perhaps even weeks. Something will happen. I mean,
Yeah,
if you look at the financial markets, the price of gold and silver are absolutely skyrocketing. We're talking there might be runs on banks and bank failures and all the rest of it. Well, that system that was set up again, starting at Henry VIII's time, that was the foundation of it, and we're now at the top of it, and it's now that tower's going to have to collapse,
yeah,
and then when it does, something else is going to have to be put in place. Now they're talking about digital ID. Well, what's being ID'd? Is it your meat suit, or are they identifying the accounts to your meat suit so that you have kingly power over it? Because you are the god of your, like the king is, if you look at the sort of king of England who holds the imperial crown or is under the imperial crown, then he is God's representative on earth. So he has to make sure that everybody gets their share. Well, that would suggest that they've built a banking and commerce system that's so robust that nobody can sort of defraud it without them being found out pretty much immediately. So basically, if you buy a house, that's your house. If you buy a car, that's your car. If this is your money in your bank, that's your money in your bank. Nobody else can take it. It's yours, and you can spend it on whatever you like. Now, there might be a sort of short period at the end of all this, because I mean, we've had banking frauds and bank runs and bank collapses. and people being swindled out of title deeds for houses and all that shit. Well, perhaps that's come to an end because they've finally perfected the system, which again goes back into what I'm saying. You've got these four basic systems of law, which is sort of like religion and science, the military and civil, the business and trade, and then there's the sort of ordinary folk going about, you know, if somebody punches you, then that's broken the law. But that's sorted out by Dane law. But banking fraud is sorted out by administrative law. So you've got to get it in order, and you've got to get it sorted out so the right people are dealing with the right things for the right reasons at the right times, and not interfering, they're not overlapping. So if something goes on with your bank account, you know, it's dealt with. If somebody assaults you in the street, it's dealt with. And so have they built this system by diverting everybody through religion, by, you know, sort of saying, we're Jews, we're this, we're that. There has been a lot of war and a lot of trouble because of it, but that's possibly the only way. Because if you think most technological advancements come in a time of war, well, how else are they going to get them to reveal the knowledge other than we'll attack them to force the hand? And then when everybody sees it used, they see it used. You know, again, look at these computers. The internet came out of the DARPA net. DARPA was the Defense and Advanced Research Program Institute in the United States, which is a continuation of the British Empire through the merchant ventures companies set up under John Dee. And so Enochian technology, linguistics, mathematics, it's all culminated in the internet. And the internet's a phenomenal tool. Again, here we are talking by artificial telepathy. I mean,
Yeah,
what a phenomenal thing. I mean, we used to dream of this when we were kids,
yeah,
talking to your mates by telephone with a screen. You know, I didn't know you had blue curtains. I do now.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Yeah, it's amazing. It is sort of like electronic telepathy. It really is. And they never meant it for people like us, though, because they knew the majority of people would be just doing normal, ordinary things on it. But it's almost like they did mean it for us in another way, that they wanted us to create a kind of an alternative underground egregore that could possibly be, a way of. It's almost like the Pied Piper of Hamelin kind of thing. They do.
Yeah,
We're the ones who do stop the kids from running off into the cave.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they need a certain amount to be mavericks.
Then going back to your saying, you know, the old gods will return. Not that we ever went away; we were just diverted.
They'll come out bigger, yeah.
Then, yeah, if the king is God's representative on earth, the king instructs his military, and he does that through a postal system. Now, it used to be envelopes and letters and trains and carriages and all the bloody rest of it, you know, and the postman on his bicycle. That was the postal system. But now we've got our own postal system in bloody email. You know, I can email you 10 times a day, and it's damn near free, isn't it?
Yep.
You might not want to read them all. You think, no, not you again. But it's done. You know, you want to order something online, bang, you press a button and it's done. You don't have to write a check and put it in the post, and then they have to, you know, mail order. I mean, ordering stuff online is just really fast mail order. I
Yeah.
mean, I can order stuff now. It'll arrive tomorrow morning by lunchtime. That's phenomenal.
It's incredible, yeah.
Whereas you used to think like in the 1970s, you know, you could send a check off and something would arrive from K's catalogue or something. But all those systems have been slowly but surely built up and built up until now we've got Amazon. You just press a button and it damn near here in the next 10 minutes, if it depending on what you're buying.
Or where you live, yeah. Yeah, a lot of those things
So
came
again,
from a lot of that kind of like stuff came from military as well. Like the
yeah,
logistics. They just like they just took the quartermasters and the dispatchers and the ordnance and put it into the commercial world. But that's where it came from.
Dragon Master General, if you go back to the Napoleonic Wars. I mean, he was
Yeah.
one of the most important men in the army because if you didn't get your food and your armaments and your gunpowder and all, they'd lose. And they couldn't afford to lose because they knew what was at stake and who was wanting to control things.
The van.
So another way of controlling an army is through finance. You know, I said last time, I think Russia's going to win militarily, but then lose financially. And then that's the Russian army finished with, because it won't any longer be needed. So the Russian army will be destroyed, but I doubt that it'll be destroyed militarily. I think it'll be destroyed financially. It'll be like, that's it, lads. You fought your battle. Everybody that survived, good luck to you. Boom, that's it. No more finance for you, because we're not doing it anymore. Because the system's rolled on, and we then become the gods on earth. We are the kings of our own land, and your land is your body because it's made of the earth. And then it all settles down, and then everything's in perfect order. You don't need an army. What would you need to fight for? Like you said, what are the Ukrainians and Russians fighting for? A bit of bloody land that'll be there when they're all dead and gone. It's bloody lunacy. But in the meantime, somebody's making a huge amount of money because they've completely bastardized the system. And that system's been bastardized for thousands of years. Who knows? And again, if the victors write the history, what history are we being told? Is it necessarily true in all cases? I'm not saying it isn't true, but there's got to be lies in there. There might be made up stuff in there as well to sort of twist the egregore to make people do what they do. I mean, look at the troubles in Ireland. I mean, how long's that been going on? If you think about the Irish flag and the Italian flag,
like that.
Yeah,
Like someone switched off a switch in 1998. Yeah.
yeah.
Like
Well,
like
COVID got switched off when the Russians invaded the Donbass. But hey, what do I know?
yeah. No, that's that
Yeah,
that
the Irish flag and the Italian flag are very similar, except the Irish has orange. You know, if you get into
well, that's
colours and
Freemasons.
tinctures, yeah, colours and tinctures of flags and heraldry, then red and orange are the same colour, but orange is a stain, and a stain is because of dishonour. So whoever was in control of Ireland behaved dishonourably to take control of Ireland, which, as you've rightly pointed out, is the Freemasons. But the Italians didn't do it, so their flag's red, white, and green, and the Irish is orange, white, and green, because the people in control of Ireland, for whatever reason, and it's probably through Bonnie Prince Charlie and Battle of the Boyne and when they were messing around with Cromwell in England and all that carry on, and the Jacobites and all that led to. That's why Ireland has orange, because that particular corporation behaved dishonourably to achieve their end. But it may have been done for greater good.
I'm going to blurt out an exclusive here.
Go
Uh,
on then.
I was you're going to like this. And this ties in a lot of things we've been talking about. I'm currently making a film with this company called the Irish Harp on the ancient sites of Ireland. I don't know if you saw it. It's called Moss Upon Stones. I
Yeah,
have discovered an alignment that runs of ancient sites in Ireland that it blows the ones in England out of the water. It's absolutely shockingly accurate and spot on. You know, like the famous ones, like the ones in England along down the Michael and Mary line. This one is even more profound.
yeah.
And I'm not a big fan.
Well,
I'm not a big fan of
I,
these.
se-
Yeah,
I sent you that the other day.
yeah.
Quite
I'm
an
not.
interesting one.
I couldn't open that up actually. But anyway,
All right.
because but this one is bulletproof. I've discovered. I'm not going to say what the ancient sites are. I'm saving that for the film. But I followed the line into across the modern sites, and the line at the beginning of it nearby lands on the exact spot of where William of Orange spent the night before the Battle of the Boyne at Mellifont
Yeah,
Abbey, which is one of the oldest abbeys in Ireland. He actually slept under this line, this actual alignment, on the eve of the battle. Now, that battle is a very strange, almost like, if you read the history of it, it's almost like some kind of pageant was being acted out. You know, it was almost like this. It's almost like it seems like it wasn't a battle at time. It's almost like it was an ancient Greek mystery play using a battlefield. But
yeah,
absolutely, that could not have been by accident or by chance. He, he, I don't want to give too much away, but he became the Sun King with this ritual of being in this place overnight, and he was reborn in the morning of the Battle of the Boyne as the Sun King of these islands. He was Dutch, a Hanoverian. He was Dutch
Yeah.
German, really. But it's that could not have been by accident, and that battle has all kinds of like esoteric stuff and legacy left afterwards. The Orange Order, all those other things. You know, there was a weird obelisk that used to be there that collapsed in the 1950s. That it's in a direct alignment with the new Children's Hospital in Dublin, which from the air is shaped like the all-seeing eye. It's just it's we're whatever that sort of like Masonic witchcraft that they had, we're still dealing with it. But this is really weird now. The the new Children's Hospital and being built in Dublin is already the most expensive building in the history of the world. It's actually gone billions over budget, and it's nowhere. It should have been finished years ago, and everyone's going like it's incompetence and competence. I have a theory that they're waiting for some astrological alignment or some other event, and then they will finish the hospital because it's connected to all that sort of like that Masonic witchcraft. I know this sounds out
Yeah.
there. For me, this is out there to go this far, but nothing else
Yeah.
makes sense. They could have finished that hospital last week, but they're deliberately pacing it slowly for that reason. I'm convinced of it.
Right. There's all sorts of crazy carry on. I mean that map that I sent you, there's a line that goes from the Great Pyramid in Giza. It goes right up the east coast of England through East Anglia, just south of Roslin Channel. It passes the 33rd degree line from the Great Pyramid as the original prime meridian, and then goes right through the middle of Stornoway, which is where Donald Trump's mother comes from, and ends up passing right through the centre of Iceland. And you're thinking, well, what the bloody hell's that all about? You know, because Donald Trump's not the president of the United States for no reason, and his mother's not from, the Isle of Lewis for no reason. And apparently she was some nobody who was just born and lived in squalor, and next thing you know, she's the mother of the president of the United States, and his uncle had Tesla's patents, and you can't make it up.
She didn't.
So who are these people?
She couldn't even speak English. She spoke Gaelic.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. So who are these people? Is it like some sort of like interbreeding and bloodline carry on? And who really is Donald Trump? And bloody hell.
Yeah, there's far more of a supernaturalism to all this stuff than people realize. Even if it's like there's also elements of I think just that it's like the whole thing of J.P. Morgan says millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires use astrology. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I think certain things unfold according to they tell the rest of us it's woo woo, but they're all sitting down with we know that from the Nazis.
Yeah.
That the actual an astrological.
Oh yeah.
We know that for a fact.
Well, that's Tula Gesellschaft and the Black Sun. What was I going to say? Because last night Zoom went down, didn't it? Which is probably why we didn't do this last night, is it?
No,
Apparently.
no. I had something going on. I wasn't feeling up to it. No, but I didn't know. It went down last night. I didn't know that.
Well, apparently, I thought that was the reason, but anyway,
No, no, no.
apparently Zoom went down last night, and there was various servers went down. I was watching one of my astrology channels, and he was saying, well, the main server or the main company is based in Seattle, and at the precise time it all went to shit, Pluto was squaring the sun or something, and you're thinking, well, bloody hell,
Yeah.
can you make this up? Is it true? I mean, I've not checked it. I mean, I could go and check on an astrology site to find out. You just put whatever time. I think it was something like 4 minutes to midnight, and it's like something like quarter of a degree off being square to the sun at that precise time, and then the old bloody site went bump, and you think, well, there's definitely energies flowing and ley lines and stars and even the energy and magnetism and charisma of actual physical bodies on the earth of whoever it is you're dealing with. I mean, you talk a lot about charisma. I mean, I remember the first time I met you, you spotted me as soon as I walked through the door. I saw you do it. I thought, yeah, Thomas has noticed I'm here. You didn't even know. I mean, I knew who you were because I watched you on your videos, but I knew you'd spotted who I was, and there was other people in the room did as well. And nobody knew. I'd never been to Neil's conferences. I just walked in and everybody sort of went, "Got your number, mate."
Well,
And
we have a kind of a
how does that work?
we have this empathic thing where
Yeah.
mirror neurons can suss out friend or foe. I
Oh
believe.
yeah. Yeah. But there was definitely energetic connection in that room. And you sort of think, well, nobody knows who I am. And I walk in and everybody clocks me. And then there was other people walking in and nobody batted an eyelid. It's really strange. I mean, I've drawn this evening. Can you see that, Thomas? That's like the Vitruvian man
Yeah,
with the chakras on. It's not very well drawn, but I'm
right.
just saying, if you're getting into Egyptian sort of astrology, which again is the priest line and religion, you've got your root chakra and then your crown chakra above the head, and then they talk about how many visible planets there are. Well, yeah, there's six visible planets, and the seventh one disappears. And then there's more invisible planets. Well, that's these ones up in the outer mind. And if you've got the whole thing going round in a circle, so again, like I was saying, lowest form of law on earth is Roman administration, Christian law, and the highest form of gnosis is in heaven, is Christian. But then you see, if heaven and earth were a reflection, well, it's going to be an opposition, isn't it? So if you're Christian up in your mind, that's good. But if you're Christian on earth, it's bad, mad.
What do you
So
what do you mean? You only got a few minutes left. What do you mean by heaven? Do you mean like
like
the
the mind.
yeah noethics, like yeah, like the field of all potentiality?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, if man's an upside down tree, you're rooted in the heaven, and the heaven is your mind. If you don't like I was saying earlier with the baby with the fontanelle and the lads going like this and tripping off his chakra, well, it's all were they sensing it through their hands? So they feel all this flow in and out of this child. So they were picking up on that child's energy until the skull sort of calcified over. If you watch Stephen King's Under the Dome, they talk about there's a big dome comes over Chester's Mill and then it calcifies and then they won't nothing will come in or out because it's calcified. Well, that to me is like they're sort of they're inside a skull almost.
yeah, yeah,
Is it an allegory of a story? And all the people running about are just the sort of the neurons firing off within the computer that is the brain. I don't know.
yeah,
It would
yeah.
seem sense on that as an allegory.
So would you equate that concept of heaven to also being God, like the God?
I would say I think, you see, the Minotaur is the bull in the labyrinth of the mind. Now, is that a minor toroid, as in you're a small magnet and the Earth's a big magnet? So you've got a minor tor, which is your mind, and then you've got the major tor, which is the Earth's magnetic field. So the greater field of the Earth up in the heavens, and like the astrology, because we know that sort of, if the heavens reflected on the Earth and vice versa, because there's various people make out astrological shapes within the topography of the land, then the same goes for your body. So the Minotaur is your mind. Theseus kills the Minotaur. Well, Theseus sounds much like idea. So an idea kills your mind. Now, what's the idea? The idea is the Bible that Masons wrote to screw with your mind, alter the script of the program.
Bible, B
Yeah,
I
Bible.
B U L L. Listen, Colin, that was brilliant. Thanks
Well,
again.
that's Enochian language technology, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. It doesn't matter what the actual the actual language is. You can still play with that kind of Enochian trickster kind of aspect to it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So thanks very much again, Colin, and we'll definitely do this again because you always shoot my mind off in different directions. And again, anyone watching this, questions in the you've been fantastic in the last few ones. Questions in the comment section, ideas, expansions. This is a tribal discussion, and it's not a sermon by two gobshites. We're all equal gobshites under heaven. See you, Colin. See you, everybody.